My dear friends, Namaskar, good evening to each and every one of you. You know, when I walk into a room full of young people like you, I feel something very particular. I feel hope. Not the fragile, uncertain kind of hope that people speak of when they are not sure things will be all right. I feel certain hope. I feel it in my bones. The way I used to feel the vibration of a rocket engine before launch, a deep, powerful trembling that tells you something magnificent is about to happen. You are that something magnificent. Today, I want to share with you the story of my life. Not because I think my life is especially extraordinary, I do not. I want to share it because I believe that everything that happened to me could happen to you. The circumstances may be different. The science may be different. But the essential truth is the same. If you dream clearly, work sincerely, and serve humbly, no force on this earth can stop you. Are you ready? Good. Let us begin. Let us go back, very far back, to a small island town by the sea, where a young boy used to watch birds fly and wonder with all his heart if he could one day touch the sky. I was born on the 15th of October, 1931, in Rameswaram. Some of you may know Rameswaram as a pilgrimage town, the place where Lord Ram is said to have built his bridge to Lanka. For Hindus, it is a sacred place. For my family, it was simply home. And what a home it was. My father's name was Jainul Abdin. He was not an educated man in the formal sense. He had no degrees, no certificates, no titles. But I have met very few people in my life. And I have met prime ministers, presidents, scientists of global distinction who were as wise as my father. He was a boat owner. He ferried Hindu pilgrims across the water to the island of Dhanushkodi. Every morning, before the sun had fully risen, he was already at work. Every evening, he returned home, simple and content, having served honestly. I used to watch him pray. He would stand in our small room, eyes closed, lips moving softly, completely absorbed in his conversation with Allah. And then he would go out and work with the same absolute dedication. He never separated the two. For him, prayer and work were not different things. They were two expressions of the same sincerity. My mother Ashiamma was the warmth of our home. We were 5 brothers and 1 sister, a large, loud, loving household. We were not wealthy. Let me be honest with you, we were poor. But I did not feel poor as a child because our home was full of something that money cannot purchase: love, faith, and a sense of belonging. Now, I want to tell you something important about Rameswaram because it shaped me in ways I have been understanding my entire life. Rameswaram was a town where a Muslim family like mine lived side by side with Hindu families with complete ease and genuine affection. My closest childhood friend was Ramanatha Sastri. His father was the head priest of the Rameswaram temple, one of the most sacred Hindu temples in South India. And yet, Ramanatha and I walked to school together every morning, shared our lunches, told each other our fears and our dreams. It never not once occurred to either of us that our friendship was unusual. It was simply natural. I have thought about this many times in my later years when I have seen what religious hatred can do to a community, to a nation, and I always come back to Rameswaram. I think if those Hindu and Muslim families of my childhood could live together with such warmth and dignity, then it is possible. It has been done. It can be done again, everywhere if we choose it. One teacher I must mention, my science teacher, Sivasubramania Iyer. He was a traditional Hindu Brahmin in many of his customs. But one day, he invited me, a Muslim boy, to his home for a meal. His wife objected. She would not serve a Muslim child in her kitchen. My teacher was firm. He served me with his own hands. Afterward, he spoke to his wife with such quiet conviction that she herself served me the next time I came. That act of principled courage from a simple school teacher, it taught me more about the meaning of humanity than many books I have read since. As a young boy, I also earned pocket money by distributing newspapers before school. I would wake before dawn, collect my bundle of papers, cycle through the streets of Rameswaram, and return home in time to wash and leave for school. I never resented this work. I am grateful for it. It taught me that effort is not beneath any person. It taught me that the morning hours belong to those who claim them. And in those early mornings, cycling by the sea, I used to watch the birds, herons standing motionless in the water, eagles soaring in wide, unhurried circles above the waves. I used to stop and stare at them and feel something stir in my chest, a longing, a question. How does it feel? I used to think to be up there, to leave the ground behind and go where only the wind knows. I did not know then that I was asking the question that would organize my entire life. When I was ready for higher schooling, I moved to Ramanathapuram to attend Schwartz High School. It was the first time I had lived away from home. Before I left, my father called me aside. He placed his hand on my head and said words I have carried with me every day of my life since. He said, "Son, you have your own identity. You are God's creation. Have faith in yourself. And always remember, when you face difficulty, it does not mean God has abandoned you. Difficulty is how God tests the quality of the material He has made." I carry those words still. I was not always the top student in my class. I want to be clear about that, because I think many young people believe that successful scientists and leaders were always brilliant in school, always first, always perfect. That is not true for me. What I had was not always the highest marks. What I had was relentlessness. I did not give up. I woke up the next morning and tried again. That, my friends, is worth more than any grade. From Schwartz High School, I went to St. Joseph's College in Tiruchirappalli to study physics. And from there, this is the moment my life truly changed direction. I was admitted to the Madras Institute of Technology to study aeronautical engineering. I want to pause here and tell you something, because I think it is important. The fee for MIT was beyond what my family could pay at that moment. My sister Zora, my beloved sister, she took the gold bangles from her wrist, the earrings from her ears. She went to a money lender and pledged her ornaments, the only valuables she owned, to pay my tuition fee. When she told me, I could not speak for some time. I promised myself in that moment of silence that I would never waste a single day of the opportunity she had given me. I have tried to keep that promise. I hope I have been worthy of what she gave me. At MIT, I encountered a professor who gave us a design project with a very tight deadline. I fell behind. He called me in and told me very directly that if I did not complete it in 2 days, my scholarship would be cancelled. I went back to my room. I did not sleep. I worked, and I finished it just in time. Later, that professor told me he had done it deliberately to see what I was made of. Pressure, he told me, does not break good material. It reveals it. My dream after MIT was to join the Indian Air Force as a fighter pilot. I went through the selection process. I did well, but when the results came, I was not chosen. There were 8 positions and I ranked 9th. My friends, I will not pretend that did not hurt. It hurt deeply. I had dreamed of flying, of putting on that uniform, of serving my country in the sky, and that door closed. But standing at that closed door, I did not know that behind me another door, much larger, leading to something far greater, was already opening. We can never see these things in the moment. That is why despair is always premature. After the Air Force disappointment, I joined the Ministry of Defense's Directorate of Technical Development and Production, and soon thereafter I entered the Defense Research and Development Organization, DRDO. My first assignment was to design a small hovercraft. It was not glamorous work, but I gave it my full effort, and I learned from it things that no textbook had taught me: how to work in a team, how to solve problems when there is no chapter in any book that describes your exact situation. And then came the moment that changed everything. I was selected to join the Indian National Committee for Space Research INCOSPAR under Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, how do I describe this man to you? He was one of the finest scientific minds of the 20th century. He was the son of a wealthy industrialist family. He had every reason to live a comfortable, successful, conventional life. Instead, he chose to dedicate himself to making India a space power. He believed with complete conviction that space technology was not a luxury for India, but a necessity. He used to say that we do not need to go to space to compete with America or Russia. We need to go to space to solve the problems of our farmers, our poor, our fishermen, to predict weather, to communicate across our vast country, to understand our own land from above. I was in his presence for the first time, and I understood what it feels like to encounter a truly great human being. He was gentle, he was warm, he had no arrogance despite his genius. He made you feel, when he spoke to you, that you were the most important person in the room. He sent me to the Thumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station in Kerala. Now when I say station, please do not imagine gleaming buildings and sophisticated laboratories. When I arrived at Thumba, the main building was a converted church. The bishop's house was our office. Our rockets and equipment were transported on bicycles and bullock carts. Yes, bicycles and bullock carts. And in this setting, which an outsider might have called primitive, some of the most dedicated scientists I have ever known were building India's future with their bare hands and their brilliant minds. The spirit in that place was extraordinary. You could feel it the moment you arrived. It was the spirit of people who believed completely in what they were doing, who had no doubt that they were part of something historic. I trained under NASA scientists. I visited Wallops Island in the United States. I came back carrying new knowledge, but also something more important, the certainty that Indian scientists, given the right environment and the right leadership, were the equal of anyone in the world. Our intelligence was not less. Our imagination was not less. What we had lacked was resources and opportunity and the freedom to fail and try again. Dr. Sarabhai was giving us all three. Let me tell you about the Satellite Launch Vehicle Program, SLV-3. India wanted to put a satellite into orbit using an entirely home-built rocket, no foreign assistance, no borrowed technology. Ours, I was appointed project director. My friends, I want you to understand what that meant in practical terms. We were attempting something that only a handful of nations had ever done. We had a small budget, we had limited facilities, and we were doing it in an era when the Cold War meant that Western nations were unwilling to share critical technologies with us. We were on our own. I assembled a team of extraordinary young engineers and scientists. What they lacked in experience, they made up in dedication. We worked through days and nights. We made mistakes, many mistakes, and we corrected them. We argued, we debated, we tested and retested. And slowly, over years of labor, SLV-3 took shape. In 1979, we were ready for our first test launch. I will tell you what it felt like, standing in that control room as the countdown began. Every single one of those years of work, every sleepless night, every argument about design, and every moment of doubt, they were all compressed into those final seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7. The rocket launched, it rose, and then it went wrong. A control system failed. SLV-3 veered off course and plunged into the Bay of Bengal. Everything we had built gone in seconds. The silence in that control room was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Now, I want to tell you what happened next because it matters. Dr. Satish Dhawan, the great man who was then leading ISRO, he came to me. He did not shout. He did not assign blame. He said quietly, "Kalam, we will learn from this. We will fix this and we will try again." And when he faced the press that evening, and the press was harsh, because failure in a government program is always a political moment, Doctor. Dhawan stood there and said, "The failure was the organization's failure. The team did their best. We accept responsibility and we will do better." That act of leadership, taking the blame publicly so that his team could continue to work with their confidence intact, it moved me beyond words. I made a vow that if I was ever in a position of leadership, I would do the same. I would protect my people. I would never let my team carry the weight of an institutional failure alone. 1 year later, the 18th of July 1980, we launched again. The countdown, the fire at the base of the rocket, the roar that you feel not just in your ears but in your chest, in your bones. The vehicle rose, it climbed, it kept climbing. And then the signal came from our tracking station. The Rohini satellite was in orbit. My friends, in that moment, I did not feel like a scientist or an engineer or a project director. I felt like a child who had been told his dream was impossible and had refused to believe it. India had become one of only 6 nations in the world to develop an indigenous satellite launch vehicle. Ours, built by our hands, with our minds, on our soil. I stepped outside the control room. The sky above Sriharikota was clear and very blue. And I looked up just as I had looked up as a boy in Rameswaram, watching those eagles circle above the sea, and I thought, we are up there now. India is up there. After the triumph of SLV-3, I moved to the Defense Research and Development Laboratory in Hyderabad to lead something even more ambitious. The Integrated Guided Missile Development Program, IGMDP. The vision was extraordinary in its scope. We would develop simultaneously 5 different missile systems: Prithvi, Agni, Trishul, Akash and Nag. Each was a different technological challenge. Each was essential to India's defense. And we would do it all at once because India's security could not wait. Now, some of you may wonder, was it not troubling to spend your life building weapons? It is a fair question, and I have asked it of myself many times. Let me tell you what I believe. A nation that cannot defend itself cannot remain free. The history of the world is very clear on this point. And India, a nation of 1 billion people, with ancient civilization and immense human resources, surrounded by complex borders, India has an absolute right and responsibility to defend its people. The purpose of our missiles was not to threaten anyone. It was to ensure that no one would ever threaten us. Deterrence is not aggression. It is the most serious form of the pursuit of peace. I assembled my team at DRDL with the same approach I had used for SLV-3. Give good people real responsibility, trust them, protect them from political interference, and celebrate their achievements publicly. I told my young engineers, do not be afraid to fail. Failure is data. Failure tells you where the truth is hiding. Bring me your failures honestly and we will fix them together. We developed Prithvi, our surface-to-surface ballistic missile, and tested it successfully. Then came Agni. Agni. Even the name carries weight. Fire. The development of Agni was not only a scientific challenge but a geopolitical one. Western nations applied diplomatic pressure on India to halt the program. They sent us quiet messages, sometimes not so quiet that they were watching with concern. We understood their concerns. We also understood our responsibilities to our own nation. Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi backed us. He understood what we were trying to do and why. And on the 22nd of May 1989, Agni was tested for the first time. I was standing in the control room at Chandipur on Sea. The countdown proceeded. The ignition sequence began. And then Agni rose, straight and true, a pillar of fire reaching into the morning sky, and flew exactly as we had designed it to fly. When the test data confirmed success, there were scientists in that room who embraced each other and wept. These were grown men and women, engineers and physicists, weeping openly without any shame, because we understood what we had done. We had demonstrated that India possessed the capability to develop on her own without any foreign assistance, one of the most sophisticated missile technologies in the world. The newspapers the next day called me the Missile Man of India. I am not sure I deserve that title. What I deserve is perhaps to be called the man who was fortunate enough to work alongside India's finest scientists, because that is the truth. Every achievement I am associated with was the achievement of a team, brilliant, dedicated, patriotic men and women who gave their best years to India's service. I have spoken about Dr. Vikram Sarabhai and Dr. Satish Dhawan. But I want to spend a moment on what they taught me about leadership, because I believe it is the most important thing I can share with you tonight. Dr. Sarabhai had a quality that I have rarely seen in powerful people. He made you feel important, not in a flattering way, not the empty importance of someone who tells you what you want to hear. He made you feel important by treating you as important, by listening to your ideas seriously, by giving you real responsibility, by believing in your potential sometimes before you believed in it yourself. When he died in December 1971, I was devastated. I remember sitting alone for a long time, feeling that a light had gone out of my world. He was gone at only 52 years of age. The loss was immense for me personally, for India's scientific community, for the world. Dr. Satish Dhawan taught me something different but equally valuable. He taught me what I have come to call the responsibility of leadership. When things go wrong, a leader steps forward and accepts the consequence. When things go right, a leader steps back and lets the team receive the recognition. This seems simple, but how rare it is. In practice, how many leaders do exactly the opposite, taking credit for success and distributing blame for failure? Dr. Dhawan showed me that the other way, the servant's way, is not just more ethical, it is more effective. Because teams that are protected by their leader work with greater courage and greater creativity. They take more risks, and bigger risks taken wisely lead to bigger breakthroughs. My dear friends, whatever field you enter, science, medicine, business, teaching, governance, art, please remember this lesson. If you are ever in a position of leadership, protect your people, celebrate them, let them shine. That is your job. My life has not been only achievements and celebrations. I have known deep loss. I lost my father, I lost my mother, I lost my beloved sister Zohara, she who had given her gold bangles so that I could study. I lost colleagues and friends who were part of the most important chapters of my life. I want to speak to you honestly about grief, because I think we do not speak of it enough. When I lost my mother, I sat in prayer for a long time. I recited the words of the Quran as my father had taught me. And slowly, not immediately, but slowly, I found something on the other side of the grief. Not the absence of pain, the pain was still there, but alongside it, gratitude. Gratitude for having had such people in my life. Gratitude that their influence was so deep in me that it could never be taken away. I am a Muslim by faith, but I have also drawn deeply from the wisdom of Hindu philosophy, from the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita, from the Tamil poetic tradition, from the Christian concept of grace. I do not see these as competing systems. I see them as different rivers flowing toward the same ocean. Science has never shaken my faith. Some people expect that a scientist, especially one who has spent his life dealing in the hard realities of physics, material science, and engineering, would lose his belief in God. I have had exactly the opposite experience. The more I have understood about the extraordinary precision of the natural laws that govern the universe, the more I have marveled at it, the deeper my faith has become. What greater evidence of a creator than a creation of such breathtaking mathematical elegance? When I prayed, I did not pray for personal success or for specific outcomes. I prayed for clarity, for the wisdom to make right decisions, for the strength to accept what I could not control. And always I felt heard. My dear young friends, we are now in the final part of my story tonight. Let me speak to you not as a scientist or as a former president, but simply as an old man who has lived a long life and thought carefully about what it means. I believe in dreams, not the drowsy dreams of sleep, but the wide awake dreams of ambition, the dreams that do not let you rest, the dreams that get you up before sunrise and keep you at your desk long after midnight, the dreams that when people tell you they are impossible, make you smile privately and work a little harder. I had such dreams. I dreamed that a poor boy from Rameswaram could become a scientist. I dreamed that India, still finding its feet after independence, still carrying the scars of colonialism, could build its own rockets and its own missiles. People told me these dreams were too big. I did not argue with them. I simply worked. I believe in failure as a teacher. In my career, I experienced many failures, failed tests, cancelled projects, technical setbacks, administrative difficulties. Each one viewed correctly was a lesson. Each one told me something essential about where the real problem lay. I have said this before and I will say it again. Do not be ashamed of your failures. Be ashamed only of giving up. Failure and giving up are not the same thing. Failure is a chapter. Giving up is the end of the book. I believe in simplicity of living. I have lived my entire adult life in modest circumstances. I have no personal wealth of any significance. I cook my own food. I give away most of what I earn. I have found that simplicity is not deprivation, it is freedom. When you own many things, those things begin to own you. When you live simply, your mind is free for what matters. I believe in young people more than anything else, more than governments, more than institutions, more than plans and policies. When I look at a room full of young, curious, passionate faces like the faces I see before me tonight, I feel an absolute certainty that India's future is safe. You are India's future. Not the politicians, not the bureaucrats, not even the scientists. You, each of you, with your particular intelligence, your particular passion, your particular dream, India needs all of it. I believe in education as the greatest equalizer and the greatest multiplier of human potential. I owe my life to education, to the teachers who believed in me, to the institutions that gave me a chance, to a family that valued learning above material comfort. I have seen what happens when good education meets a willing mind. It is the most beautiful reaction in the universe. And I want to tell you something about education that I believe very deeply. Your best teacher is not in any classroom. Your best teacher is failure. Your best teacher is curiosity. Your best teacher is the question you cannot answer, the problem you cannot solve, the challenge that keeps you awake at night because you cannot let it go. Pursue those things. Do not flee from difficulty. Difficulty is where education actually happens. I have spent much of the last decade thinking about what India can be. I believe with the same certainty that I believed in SLV 3 when it was just a drawing on a paper that India can be a fully developed nation. Not eventually, not in some distant, vague future. Soon, within our lifetimes, we have everything we need. We have one of the largest and youngest populations in the world. This is not a burden. It is our single greatest advantage. If we educate and empower it, we have a scientific community of world-class quality. We have ancient traditions of scholarship and inquiry. We have a democracy, imperfect, sometimes frustrating, sometimes maddening, but a democracy that gives every citizen a voice. What we need is to dream together, not just individuals dreaming privately, but a national dream, a shared vision of what India is becoming that connects a farmer in Punjab with a software engineer in Bangalore, with a fisherman in Kerala, with a student sitting in an auditorium like this one. Tonight, I have identified 5 areas where I believe India has the potential to be a world leader: agriculture and food processing, education and healthcare, information technology, infrastructure, and critical technologies including space, nuclear, and defense. Investment in these 5 areas, pursued with sustained commitment and national purpose, will transform this country. But technology alone is not enough. What India also needs, what every great civilization needs, is a culture of integrity. A culture where honesty is not the exception, but the expectation. Where merit is rewarded and corruption is not tolerated. Where every public servant from the Prime Minister to the most junior official understands that public service is a trust, not a privilege. I spent my own career trying to demonstrate this with my own life. I tried to be the kind of public servant I believed India deserved: one who works hard, spends little, claims no credit, and serves without agenda. I am sure I did not always succeed, but I tried. My dear friends, we are coming to the end of our time together, and I find that I am reluctant to stop, because I am always reluctant to leave a room full of young people. You give me more energy than any laboratory ever did. Let me tell you what I ask of you. Not what I command. I have no authority to command anyone. But what I ask as one human being to another. Dream. Dream boldly and without apology. Do not let anyone, not a teacher, not a parent, not a friend, not a failure, convince you that your dream is too big. The only dreams worth having are the ones that seem a little too big. Work. There is no substitute for this. I have seen brilliant people fail because they relied on brilliance alone. I have seen ordinary people achieve extraordinary things because they worked with extraordinary persistence. Work, my friends, is the bridge between your dream and your reality. So, ask yourself every morning, what am I doing today that is larger than myself? What am I contributing to my family, my community, my country? A life in service is the only life that truly satisfies. I know this from experience. Every award, every honor, every moment of public recognition that came to me, none of it gave me the peace and joy that I felt simply working alongside my team on a problem that mattered for India. Be honest in your work, in your relationships, in your self-assessment. Honesty is sometimes uncomfortable. It sometimes costs you something. But dishonesty costs you more. It costs you your integrity, which is the only thing that is truly yours and that no one can take from you. Respect all. Respect the person from the other religion, the other caste, the other political party, the other side of the argument. You do not have to agree with everyone, but you must respect the fundamental dignity of every human being. This is what my father taught me by example. This is what Rameshwaram taught me simply by being what it was. And finally, believe in India. Not blindly, not without criticism. Criticize what needs to be criticized. Reform what needs to be reformed. Speak up when something is wrong. But beneath all that necessary work of a healthy democracy, believe in this country, believe in its people, believe that the same civilization that gave the world mathematics, philosophy, literature and spiritual wisdom is fully capable of giving the world peace, prosperity and technological leadership. I believe it. With my whole heart, I believe it. And tonight, looking out at all of you, I believe it more than ever. When I was a small boy in Rameshwaram, running on the beach in the early morning with my newspaper bundle, I used to watch the eagles. I thought about what it must feel like to be completely free of the ground, to spread your wings and let the wind carry you higher than you had ever imagined you could go. My life has been the answer to that question, not because I am special, but because I refused to stay on the ground when the sky was calling. The fire beneath a rocket is extraordinary to witness. It is raw, violent, blazing power, and from that fire a vessel rises into the heavens. Those wings of fire carry not just metal and fuel and instruments, they carry a nation's dreams. They carry the centuries-old longing of a people to be great, to be capable, to be free. You have wings, my friends, every single one of you. And within you, though perhaps you have not yet felt it clearly, there is fire. Let it burn. Let it burn.